Okay, hi. So today we are talking with Anastasia, and I'm really excited to talk with her because we're going to be talking about equine therapy and equine facilitated wellness. So before we get into that, we will start with a meditation as we always do. And today we're going to focus on our heart, because in the animal communication that I do, the horse energy relies in the fourth frequency, which is the heart. And so I invite everyone to close their eyes if you're not doing something that you need your eyes open for. And if your eyes are open, you can do this meditation quite easily as well. You're just going to start to bring your awareness to your heart center. You can even place a hand there if you'd like. And as we breathe into the heart center, we're going to focus on what the horse and horse energy offers us as support, as information, as learning, as healing. So just go ahead and let your breath slow down just slightly and allow maybe your eyes to close or to become focused on a certain point. And if your hand is there, see if you can notice if you can actually feel your heart beating. Feel the rise and fall of the chest and that rhythm. So the horse is all about rhythm, creating that structure, that foundation in which we can grow and become free. They also represent the sacred marriage. And the sacred marriage isn't about man, woman, or even woman, woman, man, man, and getting married. It's about partnership and allowing each other to step into that full expression of what each person or being has to offer, so that we can both rise to the best version of ourselves. The horse is here to help us get further than we can on our own. In that we can ride their backs and go distances greater than we would be able to accomplish on our own in a shorter amount of time. So they are here to help us expand and explore greater places. And just like the rhythm of their hoof beats, which you can count in rhythm in time, when the horse is given expression and their body is supported, the rhythm of their walk, their trot, their canter can all be recorded almost as if a beat in music. And we can fall into that rhythm with them. Which is very soothing for our nervous systems. That consistency and that beat that is similar to our own heartbeat helps our nervous systems to calm and step into a parasympathetic state. So as you can imagine, the hoof beats matching your heartbeat, just allow your body to relax a little bit deeper. Notice how your breath might have deepened. If your eyes are closed, I'm going to invite you now to open them and just have a look around the space that you're in, taking in the world around you, which is our somatic experiencing exercise that we so often start with. Letting the head follow the eyes. And as Anastasia and I start talking, you can just go ahead and continue to stay connected to the rhythm of your heart and stay connected to your surroundings around you. We're going to talk about some great things today that I'm personally excited about as I started my own journey with the horses about a year ago now. So Anastasia Hirst, she is a co-producer of Equus, Healing Through Horses, equine facilitated wellness. And this documentary is amazing. I found it through Alexa Linton, actually, and who I'm taking a course from right now. I'm taking her program where you get to learn how, it's called the Whole Horse Apprenticeship. So you get to learn about the horse from head to toe. And she pointed me in the direction of this documentary, and they are traveling across many parts of the world to interview people who are sort of taking horsemanship into a new way, but specifically around equine facilitated wellness and healing. She has a bachelor degree of arts in child and youth care and about 7 years of experience working with equine facilitated wellness. So I'm just really excited to chat with you because this is a journey I've been on in the last just over a year now. And so I just really welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that I missed in there that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, except that I'm actually on the road right now filming a documentary series.
Awesome.
So, yeah. And also that I'm also in the apprenticeship. So that's why I recognized your name.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. For those of the listeners who don't really know that connection, I just reached out to Anastasia and her partner John, who is doing all the filming for the documentary, just randomly, and was like, I want to interview you guys. What you're doing is really awesome. I want to support the project, but I also want to hear about your own journey with healing in horses and how that's facilitated, because that's something that is so dear to my heart right now. And so the program that we're doing is called the Whole Horse Apprenticeship, and it's with Alexa Linton, and you can find that online. It's a great program. She runs it once a year. And so yes, that is how we've seen each other. And it's so funny how sometimes it takes a moment to connect those connections. So I would love to just dive into horses and healing. It's only something I'm really learning about, so I am super curious. I mentioned to you just earlier how I haven't been doing equine assisted therapy, but I've been taking lessons from my coach, Coral Duval, and she does, it's sort of interwoven into her work. And I've had some great learning just by learning how to ride a horse in a connected, mindful way. And I can only imagine how deep you can go with equine facilitated wellness. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, how you were introduced to it and why you were drawn to it, and sort of your story around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started off with riding lessons as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was really young, elementary school, and yeah, I mean, just happened to go to a farm that was just starting out in the field of equine facilitated wellness. They were really kind of on the leading edge of that in Canada. The States, it's been around a little bit longer. Canada,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit new. And so, yeah, just my coach was the same, being in the present moment, being in your body, relationship before anything else. All of those principles were interwoven in everything we did with horses, whether you were a client doing sessions or if you were a riding student. And so for myself, I had my own traumas, and when I started riding, I did not trust people. I was pretty quiet. I was kind of shut down. And but the horses, it sounds cheesy, but it feels like they saved my life. Like they gave me the experience of what safety feels like, what an authentic relationship feels like, and just a sense of peace. And so it started with riding, but it was so much more than riding. I would just spend every moment I could at the farm. And I would sometimes sit quietly in the evenings as the horses were eating, and I could just listen to them chewing and breathing and moving their feet. And it's like, that's still just such a resource for me. And, um, and so, yeah, I mean, it was my safe place for years. And then simultaneously they were developing this equine therapy program. And so it's neat. Like I think a lot of people in my field of work, they come from a traditional world where, traditionally when you ride horses, you want to do more, go faster, compete. And they have to kind of unlearn those things when they step into the therapy realm. And I think I was really, really lucky, because that's just where I started from, was that the relationship is the most important thing, and to go slower, to do less, that will actually get you farther. And so I was really lucky that way. And so, yeah, I decided I wanted to share this with other people. And also, meanwhile, like, I've never actually owned my own horse. I always just, any horse experience I could get, I would pick poo, I would pick rocks, I would just do anything. So I wanted other people who wouldn't be able to afford to be around horses to be able to experience it. So I did my degree in child and youth care, and that degree, it was mostly research based, and everything I could, I would relate it back to the horses. So, okay, how would I, and so, yeah, I really, the equine therapy and the nature-based therapies is my passion. And to me, it's the same. It's the same principle. It's the same. And then, and so at that farm, I started like a child and youth care program, and ran that for about 7 years, I think. And then also working with adults with addictions, and from kind of a trauma-informed focus. And then I found that, it was really hard when it was effective. Like, some of the youth I would work with weren't going to school, or they were suicidal, or stuff was going on, and they would come and it was working, and things were getting better, and then funding would get cut because funders would go, oh, they're better now, so they don't. And it was really hard, and so that's what led me to doing the documentary series, is that I think people just need to know about it. Like, it's, so that's kind of my blurb, I guess.
Yeah, great. I love that. Oh, there's so many tidbits in there that I'd like to dive into. I think, I'd love to start with you and then move out into, so I think you touched on something that I've noticed with myself with horses and other people, is that horses make you feel safe. They kind of they give you that sense of, but in the beginning, sometimes you're like, oh, this is a huge animal. Like, I don't know how to feel safe around here. And so what was that process like for you? Were you always like, oh, I just feel completely comfortable around the horse, and, I'm not scared about anything? Or were you, you're shaking your head, so I imagine obviously not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm naturally a very high sensitive person. And I mean, because of my own trauma history, I'm highly sensitive and highly anxious. So absolutely, still there's things that with horses that unnerve me, just because my nervous system is very flighty, right? But with the horses, when I like sit with it, I think it's their authenticity piece, is that they are how they are, right? Like, they don't have alternative motives like people do sometimes, right? So for me, it felt safe, because if a horse is upset, they're gonna act upset. If they're calm and consistent, that's how they, like, it's very congruent. They're how they act and how they feel is this, or how they act and how they feel is the same, right? So there's a kind of like an emotional safety piece in that, I think. And I think, as you learn skills around horses, you learn how to keep yourself safe, you learn how to set boundaries, and how to be assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And so, all of those pieces lead to feelings of safety, and absolutely transferred to other relationships in my life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think, I don't know if this is related to the question, but what kind of came up in my mind was that, horses are herd animals.
Mm-hmm.
So they are really good at reading each other, because that's how they stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a big herd of animals or a big herd of horses in a field and a bear comes along, they need to work as a herd and move away to safety. And so in that sense, they're really good at reading emotions. And so horses they don't judge emotions as good or bad. It's just information.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're around them, they kind of demand that you be authentic with them. So that old saying that if you're afraid of the horse, don't let them know, is completely wrong. It's actually, let them know,
Yeah.
actually. To be how you act and how you feel, have that be the same. Because horses, if you're afraid, or if you're anxious, or if you're upset, but you kind of have the smile on, you're pretending that everything's okay, they get really confused.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't know how to read you, and it kind of unnerves them. So most often what they do is they walk away. They just don't want to be around you. But when
Mm-hmm.
you are in your authentic self and you really drop into that place, and no matter what the emotion is, the horse wants to be with you. And I think that that's a really powerful piece for a lot of people, myself included, is that non-judgmental, I'm just going to be with you in that space. However you are is okay. And
Mm-hmm.
what better way to create safety, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah, I've been finding that um, when I was first getting on the horse and learning how to ride, I did have to say, for a while, I did have to be like, I'm scared right now. And sure enough, if I voiced that and just like allowed myself to be completely authentic in my process, which I think is a good learning lesson for us in general, because we don't allow ourselves to do that, the horse would be calm. I got on the horse a couple times, didn't voice that, and pretended to have it all together, and the horse was spooking left, right, and center, and I was freaking out. And my riding instructor was just like, don't pretend to be anything that you're not. Just be where you are, and the horse will help you with that. And I think that, in the meditation earlier talks about that sacred marriage part of like, how can we show up in the place that we are and be together in that and support each other in that. It's really, really awesome. So you mentioned, sorry, 2 seconds, everyone. My dogs are whining at the door here. You mentioned that your past trauma history, would you be willing to share just a little bit about that? And we always encourage people to, you don't have to go into detail. It's not about details, but I think it'd be great to know where you're coming from with that, and just briefly touch. I don't want to necessarily dive into it by any means, but just briefly touch on where your trauma history is based around.
Um, yeah, sure. Yeah. So I did have some sexual abuse when
Mm-hmm.
I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and then, like, unrelated to that, also grew up in a family with addictions. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, that's kind of my history.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, with the horses, it was that emotional healing place, but it was also physical. I know for a lot of, you do somatic work, meaning healing from the body.
Mm-hmm.
So bottom up processing, healing, not just figuring it all out in your head, but from the body up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, riding the horses is healing for that kind of trauma. more than, it's hard to put words to actually,
Mhm.
because the
Mhm.
trauma
Mhm.
piece. So for me, it was, I had to, yeah, I felt really small and quiet and anxious a lot of the time. And then learning to ride, it was, I had to ride this horse and be connected to, my pelvis and my core and like these parts of your body that are power centers.
Mhm.
And I had to, yeah, connect to my power, and to be able to connect to another being and ask for what you want and follow
Mhm.
through on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't know if that answered your kind of.
No, it totally does. And I was just curious about that because I have similar history, sexual abuse and addiction in my family. And for myself, I'm a recovered addict. But the piece I was just talking a few weeks ago with another person that she's starting to become a Chinese medical doctor. We interviewed her a couple weeks ago. And we were talking, she's doing her thesis and all of her study work while she's in school around trauma and specifically sexual abuse. And there is that disconnect with the body that happens hands down all the time, especially from the areas that it's affected. So for me, when I got onto a horse, that same thing happened to me. I had to become very aware of my pelvis and how I'm holding tension there. And just the other day, a year later, after being on a horse for a year, just the other day, I was able to reach a level of release in my pelvis where my coach was holding, just like had her wrists balanced on the sides of my hips there. And she's like, think about widening and softening your pelvis. And I've never felt that in my life. I mean, I'm a yoga teacher. I've done other somatic work where working like Feldenkrais, all that kind of stuff. I've never felt that kind of release. And when I did that, the horse I was on, Bro, he took a big in breath and like blew it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, and it's quite often in my work that I'm in, the realms I'm in with animal communication, there is a correlation I find with women and horses and sexual abuse, because the sexual abuse disconnects us from that, our body. it it makes us feel like we can't trust anything or anyone, and it does kind of give us this like, how do I contain my own body, how do I be authentic, how do, like, you kind of start questioning all those things. And you have to, if you want to be in relationship with a horse, you have to do those things. You have to contain your body, you have to be aware of everything, otherwise it just doesn't work.
It's true. I mean, we know that in healing trauma, I mean, it's about being in the present moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty hard not to be in the present moment when you're around this 1,000-pound animal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just their size alone kind of, it makes you be present. Otherwise, you're going to get stepped on or you're going to
Right.
get bumped.
Yeah.
Something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so sensory, right? Like it's the feel of their coat on your hand. It's the
Mm-hmm.
smell. It's those deep breaths, like you said, that they take. It's, um, people say, why not work with dogs? A lot more accessible and it's cheaper and all these, and it's different, that large size of the animals around you. And horses aren't as domesticated as some of the other animals we
Mm-hmm.
have in our life, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit more wild. They don't do things just to please us.
Mm-hmm.
They're really, often people describe horses as a mirror.
Yes.
So whatever is going on for you, they kind of, they will represent it, right? So like what you were saying when you were riding and you're feeling anxious but like kind of trying to push through it, the
Mm-hmm.
horse was getting spooky and all these things, right? And so it's a good check for us, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
good, okay, I'm up in my head again, I need to slow down, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really powerful. And coming from, my training in animal communication, the dog represents tribe and represents family and protecting family and doing that thing where we do want to please each other and we do want to take care of each other because we're living in the same house every day and we're there, and that's not what the horse is here to teach us. The horse isn't here to teach us about family. It's here to teach us about, that sacred marriage of how do we partner with ourselves and another being, which, in society it's kind of a place that's quite broken. It's really hard to find those authentic, even friendships that really, really support us, where there's no comparison or competition or jealousy or, and just really willing to meet us where we're at and support each other to be the best that we're being. My animal communication teacher often says that, when you're working with a horse, it's like a dance. And in some ways, when you're on the horse and you're riding, you need to be the lead so that the horse can have the full expression. So they're like the woman who's like twirling around and being all beautiful, and you're just being that guide and support so that they can have that expression. And I thought that was such a cool way to put it because, often in the horse world, it's been like overuse of that like masculine energy to dominate the horse instead of like, let's just support it. Yeah, it's really, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think just one point to make is that most often in the therapy we're actually not riding at all.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All on the ground. But it's the same. It's different, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
it's similar. Yeah, connecting. That whether you call it masculine energy or that more kind of business energy of like
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to get a task done. It doesn't work well for building relationships with horses. They want you to be connected to your intuition and your
Mm-hmm.
emotions and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know now that we have neuroreceptors in our stomachs and in our hearts, and so we actually take in information from our environment that helps us make decisions. So those stomach feelings and those heart feelings that you get about your intuition and your environment are real. And then when you look at a horse, and their stomachs and hearts are huge,
Right.
they're hugely, they're incredibly intuitive animals.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they do amazing things. I've just yeah.
Do you have, I love that part about the intuition. We talk a lot about intuition on here and developing your intuition and using all those different levels of intuition, not just our, mind, but our whole body for sure. And I think that's yet another great way the horses can help us develop our intuition for sure. Is there an experience, a particular experience that you've had with a horse, sort of like a little mini story, like one that stands out in your mind that was maybe a pivotal point for you in working with horses, or just something that was really special to you? I'm sure there's many.
I know. Oh man,
how do I pick one?
It's actually really hard just to choose one.
Mm-hmm.
But I could maybe describe an activity that we often
Okay,
do.
perfect. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I have a million stories related to it, but often when we start sessions with people, we do something called meet the herd activity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll have the horses. Usually they would live out in fields with their friends, but we would put them in smaller paddocks and split them up. And then we invite people to walk around and meet the horses. But we give them no information about them, not their gender, not their name, not their stories. And we ask people not to touch the horses.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have people walk around and just stand in front of the horses and just notice what they notice. What do they feel? What thoughts pop into your head? What memories? And to just jot it down and then move on to the next one. We usually have numbers in front of the horses. And then we come back and we debrief it. And every time people will find the horse with the same history as them. So the horse that we have rescued that was starved, the woman that's struggling with an eating disorder will be attracted to that horse. Or, when I'm working with a child that's in the foster care system, they're going to find that horse that's been passed around to so many homes. And it's such a powerful exercise that I love. It's so fun. I mean, we've done, sometimes we would have our addiction treatment group come in, and we have men who are very like, oh, I don't know about this horse stuff, and resistant. And even them, they'll find exactly the horse that would be a good teacher for them. And so that, I mean, I have about 1 million stories in that realm of and people will pick up on really interesting things. They'll say, I was standing in front of this horse and my right knee started to really hurt. And we'll go, yeah, that horse has a knee injury. Like, it's brilliant. And I think, I mean, talking about intuition, that's what made me think about it, is that it validates that everybody picks up on this information. And if you slow it down enough, and then start to notice when you meet people, like, who are you comfortable around? Who are you uncomfortable around? Like, does that person feel safe or unsafe? And to be able to discern those things. Yeah, it's a good exercise. Yeah.
I got goosebumps when you were talking about that exercise. That's amazing. So amazing.
Yeah.
So good. And it is interesting how you do get drawn to certain horses. And, one of the things I offer as an animal communicator is finding the sacred contract between you and your animal, or you and your horse. And that's what happens. That's what we end up talking about every time. And I do it with a little bit of somatic experiencing, and so that they can kind of discover what it is for themselves versus me telling them. But often enough, the horse is communicating to me this thing, and then they go, oh, this is what I feel. And I'm like, yep. And that's why you're together. They've been brought together to work and heal together. Yeah. It's really, really cool.
I think just like people come into our lives for a reason. I think animals come into our lives for a reason. So, I mean, when I was talking about when I was younger and riding, I rode a horse named Dara, who is like my heart horse. And he was this like kind of old, been there, done that kind of school horse, but he completely looked after me. Like, in ways that it's kind of hard to explain. I guess it was I'm riding and I'm really anxious and pretending not to be, but he would actually slow right down and go really careful with me. Like, he really, he was really sweet and gentle to me. And that's exactly what I needed in my life at that point. And it gave me that I could just go out in the field and I would talk to him about things that I didn't talk to people about yet. And I could just cry with him, and I didn't often cry around people. And so at that time, that's exactly what I needed, was that like heart connection and the safety. And then just like later in my life as like a young adult, a different horse came into my life, Morgana, who is like this powerful mare. She's a black horse. There's a lot written about black horses, and there's a lot of mythology about them. But she's like, her personality, she's the herd leader, and she's not aggressive, but she will just very subtly not do what you're asking for. And so like, if you want to meet her, you gotta show up. And so it was the next stage of my healing, in that, okay, if I want to work with her on the ground, or if I want to ride her, I need to show up. I can't like hang back and be a little like, do you want to maybe do this? Or do you want to, I had to like ask for what I wanted. I had to be assertive, and I had to be open. And this is the part of the work that's hard. It's hard to explain because it's embodied, and that's
and that's, I think, one of the beautiful things about working with horses is there isn't a lot of words. You can have so much healing and so much information shared and so much growth happen with so little words. So little
And
words.
that's why, I mean, it's great for trauma, because there are some things in our lives that you can't put words to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are those deep wells of pain,
Mm-hmm.
and the horses can meet people there and
Mm-hmm.
be in that space with them in ways that sometimes people can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so my role, like working with the horses, is really just to hold space for that
Mm-hmm.
and to create a container for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the horses, yeah, they do that really, really deep work that is below words. And
Mm-hmm.
you sometimes it takes days before people can come and say, oh, this is what I got from that.
Right.
It's and that's why I think um the change that happens is really it's long lasting, it's deep, it's really effective, because we can talk all day about, oh, that I do that behavior because it's related to this and da 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 da, da, and it's it just goes way beyond that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really effective for people who are nonverbal, so children with autism who can't speak, or people with disabilities. I worked with a young woman who was a Syrian refugee, who her and I had a huge language barrier.
Yeah.
And she, from her home in Syria, had horses. So we knew that she liked horses,
Mm.
and I knew a little bit about what she saw, which was pretty horrific. Um, but it's okay, like, as long as we have enough words to establish safety, right? I know when
Mm-hmm.
she's you're not okay. It's the work can still be done with those people. So often I would be referred kids and youth who had a million counselors. They'd been there, done that, through all of the sitting in an office talking to somebody, therapies, and they, like, sometimes youth would come for the first session and be like, I'm not talking about that again. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you don't have to, actually, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the horses, they will just do, and they bring up whatever needs to come to the surface and be worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So, for that young girl, learning to set boundaries. So the horse kind of like coming into her space all the time. So she needed to learn how to stand in her shoes, set a boundary. And then, so we're not just talking about it, but she gets to feel that. And then,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it feels really good to have space and to set boundaries. And oh, that actually made that relationship better.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't set a boundary and then the horse took off and didn't want anything to do with me, or, called
Mm-hmm.
me. It was just, oh, okay, that was clear and that felt
Mm-hmm.
better. And the horse feels better. Or if it's, grief and loss, like, to be able to just put your body over the horse's back and just allow that to the tears and the grief to come up as it like, the horses will just present whatever needs to come up. And as the facilitator, I've learned to just throw whatever agenda I thought I had out the window and trust the process.
Yeah.
All the time I would have people referred to me, and it's like, oh, this person needs to work on this, and whether it's children or youth or an adult in an addiction treatment program, and I would kind of go, okay, and then just forget it and just trust that in the present moment with that person and with the horse, they know what they need, and it'll rise.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm actually, like, just hearing all those things, it's so, I can feel just such a deep resonance in my heart of just, like I said, I haven't been to any equine assisted wellness or therapy, but what you're explaining is what I am experiencing, just riding and being around these horses who are in a very much more mindful and supported environment where we do talk about these things, because she recognizes that we need to be aware of all those things if we're going to have a good connection with the horse to be able to ride it. So I think it's just so beautiful. And that's where I started. I'm loving this conversation because I got curious of, like, I've heard of equine assisted therapy and I've always been interested in horses, but with the trauma-informed stuff that I'm trained in, I was like, I just feel like horses are it. They're the animal that can really help us. Dogs and cats can too, for sure, but there is a different level happening with the horses. There's something else really special happening there. So you're doing this documentary. Like, I would love for you to share about that and to talk about it. And I am so excited. I know you've interviewed our friend Alexa, and I've been following you guys on social media, and just what you're doing is really exciting. So please share with us all about this documentary.
Sure. Yeah. So it's me and my fiance, John Fulton. He's a photographer and a cinematographer. So, and he was actually the one that said, "Is there any films about the work you do?" And I kind of thought about it, and there is, but it's usually about one person and that one person's journey. And I realized that nobody is kind of representing the field as a whole, because there's about 1 million different forms of equine therapy.
Yeah.
There's that do it, more cognitive end of stuff, more spiritual end of stuff, working with all different populations of people. There's different theories and things like that. And so we decided to do a documentary series. So each episode will be on a different topic. And so the first topic is on trauma and PTSD. And so we're going to be interviewing, who I was telling you about before we started recording, of Sarah, who does somatic experiencing with horses, and quite a few other practitioners who work from a trauma-informed practice. And then we're going to be interviewing, war vets who worked with horses, and so the other, other episodes will be children and youth and seniors and ethics and all these different things. And at the moment, John and I are doing it completely independently. So we just dove right into it. We put all our stuff in storage. We have a minivan that we're traveling in. We tore out all. We built this like bed in the back and a little kitchen area. And we're from Vancouver Island in BC, so we are driving across Canada. We're in Alberta today and taking off for Ontario in about 2 days, and then we're going to go all through the States. And we're dove into it. We're just trusting the process.
Going for it. That's awesome. Yeah. So we're going to put all of that information on the show notes so that you can get in touch with these guys and donate to their project if it's something that feels really inspiring for you. I think it's a great message and great work to get out there. I really feel like the evolution of us in being in relationship with horses is moving in this direction. And I feel like we've finally come to a place where they can actually bring us the medicine that they are here to give us, now that we don't need them to rely on them so much for transportation and things like that. So we will have all of the information about the documentary and how to follow these guys on social media. And please spread the word. Please donate. It's a great project, and I'm happy to be supporting it. And I would love to catch up with you again and just see where you're at in a few months and see how the project's going. And yeah, just stay in touch and follow your journey. So thanks so much for being here. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with us today or share?
No, I just thank you so much, Kelsey, and thank you so much for creating a platform for women to talk trauma and to talk about their experiences, because I don't know if I don't think I've ever met anyone that doesn't have trauma, honestly. I think it is super common, and then it's still prevalent that we don't talk about it. And it's a human experience. And so I really have to connect and to heal with each other.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it. Okay, well, thanks for being on the show. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.